Hi everyone, thanks for being with me. I was interested in Steve Price's take on Sky News recently, where he has had a go with a couple of his cohorts in relation to Anthony Albanese, and the fact that Albanese has not been able to gain an appointment or a meeting with Donald Trump. And I guess this raises a number of questions about the significance of Australia. Australia, in the eyes of the United States, is insignificant. And this is a fact. And I think we need to look at it for what it really is, which is basically we're an island continent, we sit in the Pacific, we don't have much to do with the United States apart from AUKUS. They don't care whether we exist or not. And Donald Trump would probably have trouble finding us on a map. So, given all of that, why does it seem so important that Albanese has a meeting with Trump? And even if Albanese did, would that change the posture of people at Sky News? I doubt it. They'd be criticising him for the conversation that he had, for the issues he didn't raise, for the way he responded, and so on. And the other thing I think that needs to be remembered is that if you're a political leader, the last thing in the world you want is a meeting with Trump. So I'll take you to the video so that you don't have to watch it. I'll do it for you, of these guys talking about this particular issue, and we'll pause it as we go through it so that we can give you some feedback as well.
I mentioned how I now think Anthony Albanese seems far too worried about his critics. Now, right or wrong, rather than, I think, acting like a strong leader of an island nation that, let's be frank, here depends on its strongest ally, the US, to defend itself. Now, it seems we have entered this pretend world where we can side with everybody but the United States because it's led by Donald Trump. Now, thankfully, Trump wouldn't know this as he's been a little bit busy lately, but with people like the Prime Minister and with Penny Wong running foreign policy, you've got to ask yourself this. Is this a clever way to go? And I don't think it is. Now, some critics are now asking whether Australia is the United States' forgotten ally after it emerged that Canberra was left out of the loop on the weekend. I'd say the reverse. The US is the Australian government's forgotten ally. There is clearly, among many Labor ministers and advisors, an anti-Trump dislike that is distorting their thinking.
Now, I need to say, I don't know where he gets that from. I don't know who he's talking about, this anti-Trump dislike. Australians generally, and that is to the tune of around 75% of Australians, don't like the Trump mode of operation. That we don't like the way he speaks, we don't like him as a politician, we don't want Australia to become or emulate Donald Trump. As a result of that, when Dutton was referred, and these guys refer to this later, but when Dutton was referred as Trump light, that was damaging to Dutton simply because people don't like Trump. It's as simple as that. Now, whether there's been any indication that the Labor Party has displayed a distinct dislike for Trump is yet to be seen. I haven't seen it. If you've seen it, please make a comment below, which reminds me, please subscribe to my channel, ring the bell for further notifications, do what you need to do. It'd be greatly appreciated. So do just that because it's free. The thing is that the United States, as I said earlier, doesn't really care about Australia apart from AUKUS and even then, one has to wonder whether they care all that much. But the reality is that Albanese and the government haven't made any negative comments that I'm aware of in relation to Donald Trump. However, Steve Price seems to be sowing that seed, and I think it's unfounded. It's an assumption by them that is just simply incorrect. I think that the Labor Party have definitely tried to straddle two sides of the ladder, or if you like, that they haven't actually made a decision as to whether they should come out and speak out against Trump or not. I personally, I don't know how many of you agree with this, but I personally believe that it would be in Australia's best interest if we told the United States to bugger off. we've had enough. You can't be trusted. You're dishonest. You lie, particularly Trump, all the time. How can we possibly believe anything that you say? You're the man who didn't even know what AUKUS was when you were asked. So maybe it's about time the Labor Party and Australia decide to stand on their own. And I've spoken about that many times before. And I think many of the people watching actually agree with me. It is about time we stood on our own. So where are these guys coming from? It is amazing, it is curious, and it has me bewildered.
Joined now by my panel, Sky News contributor Louise Roberts and Adoni Media's Lisa Goddard. Louise, Labor used as a weapon, you might remember, during the election campaign. I hate to take you back to the election campaign because it was so dreary, but the idea that the coalition was somehow too close to Donald Trump. I mean, you remember Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price was absolutely attacked by the government and the media for simply saying, let's make Australia great again. Given that decisive action taken at the weekend, wouldn't we rather be close than left out?
100%. I mean, I think what we're seeing now, Steve...
I mean, one of the issues that I find fascinating is that, let's make our country great again. Firstly, when were we great? When was America great? I don't know when America ever was great. They're a flawed nation politically and in other areas as well. So what's this effort to make Australia great again? I think really if you wanted an identity, an Australian identity in particular, we don't have to see it as great. We actually could see it as fundamentally correct. That we have our problems, we have our issues, we make mistakes, and I'll refer to Indigenous affairs around that in particular. We haven't done things as they should have been done. The White Australia policy, for example, which was in place until 1965 or whenever it was, we've made mistakes. We have never been great, never will be great. We just do the best that we can. A little bit of humility would be rather helpful in these circumstances, I think, rather than this notion, for whatever bizarre reason, that we should be great. And so whenever anybody raises that, Jacinta Price raised it, certainly, and it was inappropriate, and it was wrong, because that's not how Australians see Australia. It's not how we see ourselves as being great or better than somebody else. We often punch above our weight in terms of sport and in other areas, but we are not great. We are competent, hopefully, and hopefully we have competent governments that demonstrate that as well. So let's carry on.
Is the result of Labor's political posturing when Anthony Albanese and Penny Wong have put so much energy into distancing themselves from Donald Trump.
I don't even know where that comes from. In what way, and can someone point out to me in the comment section below, in what way have we distanced ourselves from the United States? In fact, most of the time, as I said before, I'm really disappointed that Albanese hasn't attempted to distance himself from the US, that we haven't called out Trump for his bizarre behaviour. We haven't insisted that what's happening in Gaza and the United States' support of Israel is just wrong. We haven't stated that bombing another country is against international law. We haven't talked about those issues. We don't talk about those issues because of primarily because I think it would be some sort of Jewish backlash if we talk about Israel and what Israel does. And the IDF, not the Jewish people at all, but the IDF and Netanyahu are just an evil bunch of, I was going to swear, but they are. You know what I mean? They are just evil. And Donald Trump goes along with that, the United States goes along with it, and we as Australians should actually call them out for just that. But we don't, and I see that as cowardice. But it's not exactly where these dudes are coming from.
rather than putting the energy into building a relationship with our strongest ally. And you make a very good point about what they said about Jacinta Price when she dared to say, let's make Australia great again. And instead of focusing on cost of living, Labor put so much energy in their election campaign in attacking Peter Dutton as, Trump light. So I think what we see here is we've sidelined ourselves. We've become in a situation where we're not even considered as part of this discussion as maybe the G7 leaders were. So I think, Mr Albanese and Penny Wong need to really.
So what makes us think that because we weren't involved in the G7, because we're not part of the G7, that for some reason that is a deficit, that is a mistake, that it's, sometimes with some of these people, their logic just fails me. I don't know where they're coming from. They're so biased that they can't see that the statements they make are highly inaccurate.
Really reconsider where we stand with the US and do something to fix it.
Yeah, Louise is right. I mean, wouldn't it have been so much better on Saturday morning or Saturday lunchtime if we'd whacked on Sky and you had Prime Minister Albanese saying, well, I had a call from the US President overnight. He told me what he was going to do in Iran. He brought us into the whole operation. I, as an Australian, would have felt much better about it.
But Steve, you would have watched that on the weekend, and I was watching the clock tick by and thinking, where is our Prime Minister? He just wasn't out there saying anything. The fact that it was more than 24 hours before we heard from him says enough in itself. Silence is very loud on days like that. And Louise is right. He absolutely has done nothing to ingratiate himself to the US President at all. And at this point, he appears on the world stage to be completely irrelevant. And the one thing Albanese doesn't like is to be ridiculed. Every time he is asked...
I don't think Albanese is feeling ridiculed, apart from by you guys. But there's still this idea, I guess, that that Albanese must have a prominent position on the world stage. Reality is he doesn't. He won't. Not unless something happens in the Pacific region that Australia has to become significantly involved in. Will it ever happen? In terms of trade, in terms of military ability, we are lacking greatly. And there's this continual conversation about defence as if we're supposed to build up our defence to a point whereby we even emulate perhaps the United States. It's crazy. So let me know what you think about all of this stuff in the comment section below, because I think the message that is continually being sold by Sky News now is more about finding and searching for criticism of Albanese at this particular point on the international stage, because that's all the conversation seems to be about. It seems to be about Donald Trump and what Trump's doing or not doing, the fact that he's having a go at Israel right at the moment, whatever it might be. And the fact that we are doing nothing about it. Now, I'm critical of Albanese because I think that he should be making statements about Donald Trump and what the Americans are doing, and in fact, particularly contravening of international law. But nevertheless, he doesn't. So I'm certainly critical of that. They're critical because this simply doesn't seem to be important enough. The reality is, he isn't. Thanks everybody for watching. In the meantime, take care, look after yourselves, and be safe.